Alright guys, let's talk trolling. Gonna start off here with the blade planer boards. These just came out exclusive at the Musky Shop to get them going here. New from Livingston. So this was a design we worked on for many years. And this product started as a handmade thing, and it is just crazy good, and Livingston even made it better, believe it or not. So I'm going to show you how to rig a planer board. Now the blade is unique where it has this adjustable arm here. This board is going to self-adjust in the water and find its perfect balance so this thing's always running. So when you get your new blades, work that back and forth just a little bit, and it'll be nice and limber, so every time you hook a different bait to this deal, it's going to find its perfect balance. So how are we rigging a planer? Now I've got, say, like my GB Baits jawbreaker here, right? And I want to troll this bait, say 20 feet behind the boat, which we'll discuss here in a second. How am I going to rig it up? And just for demo purposes, I'm going to lay this to the side here for us and just show you on a bit of line. So when it comes to musky trolling, what we're going to want to do is start with our clip. So in practice, which I'll show you here in a moment, we've let out our line length that we intend to troll. So let's take our GB jawbreaker here, and let's say we know we need to have 35 feet out. We've let out 35 feet of line on our line counter, and now we're going to clip our planer board on. So if we know 35 feet hits our target depth, that's all we need to let out. Then we take our planer board, and this is your clip. You depress this, or you put pressure on this, and it opens this mouth up. What we're going to do for braided line is put it into the clip, make a loop, and double it over. All right? And so that's got a loop around this clip. That's not going anywhere. And braided line is slick and slippery. That's why we do this, especially with your hard pulling baits. Your next maneuver is going to be this small clip here in the back, which is just a small slide over clip. Slide your line into it, bam. And we're set up. It should look like that. And so as the bait's going through the water, the tension's here, and you'll actually see what's unique about the blade planer board is as your bait is moving, everything is being transferred freely to the rod tip. There's no question, is my bait moving? Most other planer boards have this hard piece of plastic here and the clip's just barely hanging on. This is going to show you all the rod action of your bait, down to the smallest baits. You know, it's trolling some really downsized stuff. Actually, Smith with Rogue style baits, they're walleye baits, and you can see every bump and every jump in that. So you know if you've got a weed foul, you know what's happening with your bait there. So, show you a basic setup. I'm just going to do it with one rod here. And we'll get our GB put away here. And this guy's a nice violent wobble, but he's small. Let's get a big bait, because everybody loves about the blade planer board that it can haul these big baits. Well, I'll show you some small baits here in a minute. Let's start with a 10-inch headlock, right? I'm going to grab my rod, get it going here. 10-inch headlock, and we're going to do it off this side. So, the blade is set up for port and starboard, red and green. They run on the one side. And what I'm going to do to set up a trolling pass here is I'm going to get on my remote. And what I really like to do when I'm setting up a trolling pass is take advantage of remote steering. Whether I'm guiding or whether I'm fishing by myself or friends or family, it's far easier for me to just put this on a course heading so I know what's going to happen. So let's say with this headlock, I look at my Musky 360 app, and I know I want to have 50 feet of line out, right? So I get it on my trolling charts on 360. I'm going to set out 50 feet here. Right, we're going to get that, and there we are, 50 feet. Take my rod back just a tick is the way I like to do it. And if you notice, I'm not at high speed. It's way easy. So we have 50 feet of line out. Take my clip up. I'll show you, get tight here. This is the way I like to do it. I've got the rod here, clip on, wrap it around. I'm not going fast at all, so it's not going to grab you. Slide it in there, bam, that's secure. I'm going to grab this weird rear piece here, bam. Okay, so In theory, the rod tip is now at the planer board. So anything else I let out here does not change the depth at which that bait is running. That's the stop. So if it's got 50 feet out, it's always 50 feet out, right? So what we'll do after that, and I'm now at 70, right? So I have an additional 20 feet of line out at the blade, and I just put that at my rod holder, right? So that can be used in a couple ways. If I need to set up multiple rods, let's grab our GB here. Got the jawbreaker, and let's say I want to set him up, right? I know that I have clearance between these rods, right? So I've bought a little clearance here in our running path, right? And I'm not setting up this big spread. So that's a really basic thing. Now guys will go, well, we can only run 2 rods. Why do we need planer boards? Well, let's say, for instance, there's a submerged island where I'm at right now. I'm not worried about this open water. I'm worried about hitting this island. So it might be more, it might be more productive if both rods are on this side to take advantage of a planer board, so you can have an outside rod with a little bit more clearance and spread these baits out. Because really right now, all I've done is created about 15 feet of running path at about 20 feet of line out here, where I have 15 feet of clearance between these baits, right? And as you're trolling tighter cover, contour, structure, you can tighten these things up, and we can narrow that path just a little bit if we're really, really dialed in on where we want to be. Now, in this scenario, this is only doing 2 lines, and let's say you and your buddy are in a state, it's 1 per. You can take advantage of this. Now, guys that say you're on the Bay of Green Bay or places where you control as many lines as you want, let's talk about setting those up, right? So, the basics of setting up a planer board spread, if you will, starts with what rods are going first, okay? It can be difficult if we come over here and let's say we want to, set this guy up, and we do this number, right? And we've set him up, and now we're going to go further up in the boat or ever in the back. If we have this number here and we've got a rod forward of this, I've got a rod holder here, I could go forward of this, and now I'm going to have a difficulty in setting this up. The way I prefer to work is from the planer boards and then back, right? And what happens is if we set this guy, say we're setting up 4 lines, 5 lines. We set this guy up first, right? We've got this out. We've stripped a bunch of line here, right? Now I have as much operating room as I want over here, okay? So I can feed this guy out here. I can move this rod forward. Now I've got a lot of clearance to even I would feel comfortable putting another parallel rod here. That is how we're going to do it. So work from the planer boards in, right? It's kind of how I'm doing it on an average day. If I'm going to run 5, it'll be 2 down rods, 2 outside rods, and then a prop wash rod, and then go blade planer boards in front of that. And in extreme situations, right? Let's say that we really want to cover some water, and I'll move up here if you want to take a step up there. There you go. And this is what I love about Folbies, the modular nature of this. Right, I'll grab a rod holder here and get this set up. Okay, so we could grab our rod here, have him up. This is just the way I like to run them. So I've got this blade planer board here running on port side. Now I'll grab my jawbreaker here. Double wrap it around. And I've created a little bit of distance. Now you can do 2 things. I'm always running Musky Shop shield trolling rods, right? These are 8-foot trolling rods. And I'm creating some more distance by my rod placement there at the front of the boat. Now, One could use longer rods on the outside, different. So now I'm running 2 planer boards here, and I can adjust that here. Maybe I want him tighter. And let's say I'm in a dangerous situation. We're in Canada, we're on a shield lake. We know muskies are on reefs, right? I don't want to drive my big expensive engine over that. I don't want to get in a situation where we're going to bang these rocks. I can feed rods this way, and you'll notice what I like to do in a basic placement. Let me sneak by here. This guy's going to be your furthest out. So the way I like to look at boards, put a little speed on her here. We're at trolling motor speed right now. But the way I like to run my boards is ensuring that the furthest out board is towards the front and tighter in, right? So this guy's here, he could be here, however we want to set that up. Now that would allow for a scenario where I could come and effectively, safely run, if I want to turn this rod holder here, running 3 aside, which is not a big deal. And I'll actually do it real quick just for demo purposes here. We can grab this guy, position him here, all right, watching the wind. So with the blade, I've got 3 musky baits going on one side. Now, that looks cool and all, but what will we use it for again? Fishing, say, a submerged island, fishing a rock pile, fishing something that is an edge, a definitive edge. This becomes deadly for anglers, where you can cover it. You know, these big, long lateral weed beds, which we're going to talk about here in a moment. This becomes highly effective as a means to cover water and cover edges and spread your baits out. You know, for a long time, the walleye guys have had us beat where they can put out this giant spread of baits. That's no longer the case now with the blade. You can run this guy as much as you want. Right now, we're only running, 2. I'm on trolling motor right now. But as we get at speed, you can do whatever you want with these guys. So that is how conceptually I'm looking at planer boards. It's simply a means to spread your baits out and deliver them where you need them to be. Okay? So I'm going to take a second here and talk about how do we get these in. Well, first, how do we get a fish, right? So what is problematic? Let's say this inside board gets hit. We're trolling along here, having a good time. Mash! This guy gets hit. When you're trolling and you have a bunch of boards out, I always try to take advantage of the trolling motor to keep the boat advancing in a small degree, right? So if we just hit stop on the trolling motor or the big engine, right? Because most of the time in the active trolling, we're trolling on the big engine. If I stop and this fish is running rampant here, we can get in a real mess, okay? So I always keep my trolling motor down. So I put the boat in neutral, have this set, at a low speed, so I'm able to get this rod holder in. Bam, the fish is on, everything's going crazy. It's nuts. He's in this, he's in that. We're working around. That's what you're going to end up dealing with. Trying to, at best, keep that bait in between these rods. That's going to be the captain's job to really make sure that he's maneuvering the boat to keep these things spread out. But for your average guy, when you're working a fish in, what you're going to have to do is realize there's a certain point with a musky planer that we have a fish on, and we have a planer board on. So what we've got to do is quickly grab this line or grab the blade, right? Grab your clip, it's loose. Grab this, it's off, right? That is just, you have to do it fast if he doesn't pop it off. But in an attempt to try to keep things spread out here and keep it safe for everybody. So that'll kind of give you the down and dirty on the basics of creating that distance, right? What are we using them for conceptually? What is a planer board good for? Okay, so even a solo angler that's fishing by themselves and it's fishing rock piles, weed edges, timber, anything you don't want to drive your boat in, take advantage of this because you can create some serious distance for yourself that's going to allow you to safely run areas that most people are never going to run, and it really opens up a whole new world of muskie angling for you there. Get this pulled in. So, I got that. And that same thing applies for you guys. Everything applies on the other side. There's nothing different from port to starboard as how they run. But I gotta say this, what would a blade planer board demo be without doing something ridiculous? Really. So let's go. There's a 14-inch Jake, right? We've got a 10-inch headlock on over here with 50 feet out. Let's go something stupid. All right, I've got my killer little jawbreaker from GB Baits here. He's cute and all. Let's try to break something, shall we? 14-inch Jake, kind of a ridiculous bait for anybody to troll for muskies. So, let me do this. I'm going to run this guy. Quick move and groove here. Okay. So, to set this up once again, gonna get this off this edge. Set up a planer board. Line clicker. You're at 0. I want to do a big one here. I'm just gonna wing him out there. Yeah, there's 50 feet, whatever. Once again, grab your planer board. Slow things down just a hair. Grab your planer board. Put the clip on. Give her a little loop-a-doop there. Slide the rear clip on. We're good. Okay, so I'm going to feed this out and we're going to get stupid for a minute because nobody in their right mind is trolling 14-inch Jake on a planer board, much less with any distance. So I'm going to get this in. Rod is in place. Put the drag on here. Let's come look at the speedometer together, shall we? And I'm going to, right up here in the top left-hand corner, we're going to have the speed here. And we'll try to show that to you. I'm going to get this planer board. And you go, I'm putzing along here. Oh, what, 2? We're in normal muskie speeds right now. Oh, there's 4. We're into the mid-5s. 6. Why don't we pan back there and show? 7.2. And if you notice, that's staying. Now this is ridiculous. It should never be done, but the blade is staying, right? I'm pulling right now. If you'll pan over here for me. Give it a little shade. 7.3, which is ridiculous. Nobody in their right mind is going to troll muskies at 7.3 miles an hour with a 14-inch Jake with a planer board. But there you have it, okay? And let's see, when does this, what? Do we dare? I don't know what more you want. That's a 14-inch Jake at 9 miles an hour. It can take it. And that blade is running true. It's running through our own boat wake. We're practically trying to get on plane. And we have significant rollers with some baits and boats going by. There you have it. It's going to put fish in the net. You control this in any condition. This is made for the biggest water there is. You can take this anywhere and go as fast as you want. 9 miles an hour, 14-inch Jake. That's about as crazy as you're going to get. So let's go something a little more realistic here, right? Like we said when we first came out with that product, no matter what the chop is, or no matter the chop, the blade won't stop, guys. And 14-inch Jake at 9 miles an hour, that's as hard as you're ever going to hit a planer board, and she's going to run true. So, I want to show you, though, some applications that are a little bit more subtle, okay? So I'm going to step up here and grab some things. A little finessier, a little different, right? Talk about Whole different animal. Little crane bait, right? So, we're going to do this. I'm going to show you some spinnerbait trolling here real quick. But just to let you know, it's not all big baits with the blade. It doesn't have to be something crazy. And what we're going to show you here, get the troller going here. Fighting the wind. Get back there. Okay. A little bit of line out on a crane bait. And with like a crane, I'll just go straight clip, you know. If you feel better, you can double it. I'm really only going straight clip with those big heavy guys. But we'll get out here. What I want to show you that's nice is how well this is just going to take smaller presentations, like even a crane bait out there. And if you could, camera person, if you'll see the rod tip here, come here to me real quick. This is one of my favorite things, is that we actually have the rod angle of this crane bait, or the rod action, and you're seeing the vibration in the crane bait as we're going here. So the blade is able to translate that vibration from the clip. You know that guy's running, okay? So let's talk tactics. How can we take a planer board and catch more fish right now? It's spring, right? We're not trolling some monstrosity. And one little cool thing I just showed you there. You saw that weed ketchup on there? The blade, the reason we call it the blade, it cuts through that crap on the surface. And so if you're fishing a very weedy area, or you've got a lot of floating stuff, you're going to be able to troll with the blade. It's going to grab or cut most of that instead of fouling up. Obviously, there's a point where it's going to foul up, but you can get a lot of action out of a blade planer board, or a lot more longevity, I should say, on the water in really weedy situations by running a blade. So let's take one of these. I love them. Some of the new Ruff Tackle. They've got these awesome trolling spinner baits, right? It's springtime, or you're coming into the opener up north. What are we going to do? How can we cover water? Say you've got giant weed flats, you've got sandy areas, big areas we need to cover. Let's take one of these Ruff Tackle, one of their new spinner baits or trolling baits here, pitch them out, right, and troll spinner baits. Now, spinner baits are tricky to calibrate your running depth, right? You need to kind of visually watch what this bait's going to do at speed. Blades have lift, so the bigger the blade, the higher it runs in the water. So we need to kind of manage our speed. I really like speeds in the high 2s to the low 3s when I'm running trolling passes with spinner baits, right? So what I'm going to do is take my spinner bait there from Ruff Dog, grab a blade, hook him up. Spinner baits, I like to double them just because of extra pull. Clip this guy on, right, and set this pass up. So let's get down here and I'll show you kind of a one rodder pass here. So I'm going to get my planer board out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my mapping and go, okay, what is an appropriate distance I want to be from said shoreline, weed edge, rock pile, whatever it is with this spinner bait, and let that out. So I've got just a little over 35 feet there to create distance from the boat. Taking advantage of, say, side scan or live imaging in this situation is phenomenal, because we'll know exactly how far that weed edge is from us. And I can take my spinner bait, engage, I'm in the low 3s right now, and troll these weed edges and contour with the boat. So the blade's going to be very responsive, right? So as I turn in, he's coming with. As I turn out, we're going with, and we're able to cover these outside edges, these big sand flats, these big outside weed edges, even submerged timber, rock piles, with these spinner baits in the early season, which is absolutely deadly. You can take this blade and set it up on a very short line. Let me grab this Ruff Dog. Another great Ruff Tackle option here, right? Just the Rad Dog. Has a little bit of lift to it. as little as line as 5, 6, 7 feet behind your planer board and cover exceptionally shallow areas. So the planer board is just going to cut through there, and here's the spinnerbait behind it with just 5, 6 feet of line, and you're covering immense swaths of, like again, sand flat, super shallow areas. In the early season, they're really not seeing any angling pressure, and they're really not getting covered by casting in. People are just passing over the fish, opposed to taking advantage of a planer board and spinnerbaits from Ruff Tackle, and working that edge. And the reason I keep saying rough is they run heavier. They have a way heavier head here, and they're really made for trolling. So this is what I'm going to kind of edge towards. So in a situation like this, working my boat towards these sand flats, towards these edges, just traipsing along that mid 2s, high 3s, it's going to put big muskies in your boat. It's a super easy thing to do, whether you got 1 rod, you got 50 rods, whatever the limitations are in your state. Take advantage of planer boards, spinner baits, more muskies in your net. Get a hold of the Musky Shop. They'll set you up for success.